Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Brian Garrick. Today I'm coming at you a little bit sweaty, a little bit tired, and in definite need of a shave. But today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I believe is being a good stagehand. And, coming from me, I understand that sounds kind of cocky, but I'm not meaning it in any sense. Many people may have different definitions about what being a good stagehand is, but these are just things that I've kind of observed being in a team lead role and also being a stagehand for many years myself. So, of course, take this with a grain of salt. This may be good for people who are kind of breaking into the industry that want to, just hear different perspectives and hear about what other people may consider a good stagehand. And also, if you're a veteran, if you've been doing this for years and years, it may be nice just to hear a different perspective about, look internally and see, hey, am I messing up on some of these things? Is there ways that I can improve as a stagehand? Because in this industry, I've noticed that people are very, confident in themselves, very conscious, very, in love with the work and want to improve. And so that's what I try to make these videos for. I try to make these videos for people who are looking to improve, looking to better themselves. Of course, that's what I'm trying to do. So by me making this content, I hope that I'm, improving myself. But today I have a little, just a quick chat today. I have my terrible chicken scratch writing here on this whiteboard. I want to talk to you about a couple things that came to my mind. Just shooting off the script, just talking about a couple things. One of the things I wanted to talk about is being on time, especially if you're working in a local, if you're working in a roadhouse, if you're called for a time, make sure that you're on time. If you're working in a local union, they will replace you if you don't show up for your call. No matter who you are, very rare cases, it depends on where you are and what building you work in, but you are replaceable. So always keep that in mind. Always know that, you can be replaced. So show up on time. It does everyone a good favor. It helps with, contract negotiations, especially if you're competing with other companies that are also offering labors. Make sure that your people are on time. Make sure that you're qualified to do the job. So always show up, ahead of time. And going off of that last note, saying that you're qualified to do the job, there is a lot of instances where this industry is learning by doing the job. A lot of the time that when you're being put on a call, there may be, especially if you're starting out, you're going to be like a carpenter or an electrician, or working in video, something like that. And you're like, I've never done that stuff before. You may want to consider, and this is just, my opinion, call your steward ahead of time. If you're working, for a union, you can see on your call steward or however you get your labor request, you can see who the steward is, try to contact them, and they may refer you to your team lead, or they may have, advice themselves that they can give you. And just say, hey, it's my first time doing this on a call. I want to know if there's anything that I need to bring to the call, if there's any expectations for me. What can I do to do the best job on this call? And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, if you're being put on a call, they may expect that you don't have the knowledge, or they're more than willing to work with you on that. They want people to succeed in this industry. You want to uplift each other in this industry. And people will be more than willing to help you learn and grow as a technician. So don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's expected of me, but I want to be there. I want to be on this call. I'm excited for it. So let me know what I can do to do my best job. And maybe in some cases, they're just like, hey, we're just going to have you watch, someone else do the job. And then, maybe at the end of near the end of the call, you can especially if you're rigging for the first time, maybe you can set up a point or whatnot, but you're going to want to see other people do it first before you start doing that, making sure that you are very aware about what's going on, making sure that other people are watching you and supporting you in that, making sure that everyone's safe and all that. So don't be afraid to ask. Always be open to talking with other people. A lot of people respect that if you're willing to admit your own faults and admit that you don't know what you're doing. People respect that, honestly. Next thing I want to talk about is work first, grieve later. You may be familiar with this if you work in a union. This is something that we talk about a lot. But sometimes when you're working under an employer and there may come up conflicts, either conflicts just during the call, if departments are butting heads or, just other people in the call are butting heads, or say your employer isn't giving you your break on time, or what have you. There's a bunch of things that could come up. You understand what I'm saying when I say work first, grieve later. There's a time and a place in order to grieve. But you don't want to be the guy who's bitching and moaning on a call saying like, oh, this sucks, I hate this. People don't want to work around that. People want to work and then earn their money and then go home. If you're represented by a union, it is their job to represent you and make sure that those things are not a precedent and that you are represented in that. And if there's any wrong play or foul play in that they have your back and they will support you in that. So always keep that in mind. Don't be the guy who's going to be sitting there complaining, the guy or girl, you know what I mean. Don't be the person that's sitting there complaining and making everyone else's morale going down in what is already a shitty situation. Don't be that person that brings down the whole team. Try to uplift each other, try to make the most out of it. And especially in this industry, the shows will come in and then the shows will go out. And then it's on to the next thing. It's not going to be forever. So always try to do your best to know what time and place there is to address these issues. Great. I hope that was clear with that. This is something that, especially for me who has a lot of experience, being a team lead. In the past weeks, my house has been shut down. So I've had, the reason I'm talking about this is that I've had the opportunity to just be a regular hand for a little bit. And that's kind of opened up my eyes. I've worked in the amphitheater. I worked in a stadium. This last week, I just spent a week in a convention center doing some AV. I was more of a lead in that scenario, but, and the other calls, I was just a regular hand. And it was, what eye-opening for me, who's been working as a lead for the past few months, to kind of step back into that role. And, working with similar people, I'm working, in the union, and so I'm working with similar people. But something that I try to do is, don't be a leader if you're not a leader. And what I mean by that is don't be the guy who just thinks that they know everything, is cocky and knows everything that's going on, because most of the time you don't. So if you do have a team lead, always refer to that lead if you don't know what you're doing. Don't just assume that you know what's going on and make decisions for them, because then your team lead's going to get pissed off if you do something wrong. They come up to you and say, hey, who told you to do this? Oh, well, that guy told us to do this. Well, that person's not your lead. Why are you listening to them? So don't be the person who thinks that they know everything that's going on or think that they know what the team lead would want. Your team lead is there to lead the team. I understand that there's going to be situations where it's like 15, 20 people on the call. They may be running around the venue a little bit harder to get a hold of. But don't make the mistake and then have it be fixed later. Always make sure that you're doing the job correct first before doing it. So just keep that in mind. That's something that, I'm kind of passionate about, because I've had that happen to me in the past where people think that they know what I want and then go ahead and do that without asking me. But I've had people come up to me when I'm just a regular hand and say, hey, Brian, what should we be doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Let's go talk to our team lead or talk to the show crew and see what they want us to do, And so always be willing to step back and say, hey, I don't know what you want. Let's figure it out together. Let's work together on this to do this. Don't be cocky. Don't think that you know everything that's going on, because a lot of the time you don't, especially on touring shows. You've probably never worked that show before, or it's changed since the last time you've worked on it. So you don't know what's going on. Just be willing to admit that and figure it out. You'll get better results that way, in my opinion. Another thing is know when to stand by. And that is, kind of near the end of a load-in, something you should know when there's not a lot going on. You can ask your team lead and they could say, hey, we're just standing by for a little while. Just hang out and then I'll come get you. So know when to stand by, know where you want to be standing by. And that's another thing, is get a better idea of the greater picture. Understand where the other departments are and make sure that you're not in their way. If you're near the end of a load-in and all the electricians are done on stage, but the carpenters are still getting stuff up, you don't want to be standing in the middle of the stage while carpenters are trying to work around you. Go to the loading dock, go off stage, go to kind of look and see where the rest of your team is, especially if they worked in the building for a long time, and kind of go and stand in the same area with them and be just ready to work. You can be on your phone, that stuff happens, you may be sitting around waiting for a long time, but be available. Don't completely check out or go somewhere else completely in the building or just walk off the site completely. You don't want to do that until your steward dismisses you. So just be ready for when you're needed. That's all I kind of really had. That's all I really wanted to talk about. I'd love to hear what your guys' opinions are about being a good stagehand, the kind of do's and don'ts, what you see that you like, what you see that you don't like. I'd love to hear from y'all. So appreciate you coming by, and good luck. Bye. Thank you.